Hey True Believers, Englentine here, and I want to talk to you about how I help destroy comics. I've heard a lot of videos, I've seen a lot of videos on the crash in the 1990s, and they seem very clinical, as if they were done by, and I've seen a lot of these, done by people who were either really small children during the crash or zygotes. You know, they weren't around, so you don't have that personal feeling. Now, granted, this is going to be more anecdotal because this is my experience with the with the comic book crash, but I think it's going to be entertaining because, first of all, it was a blast. The comic crash was a real buyer's market. One thing of note about that time is that the relationship between comic book creator and comic book reader was different. Now, Marvel, even, you know, they seem to want to actually have a relationship instead of what they do nowadays is where they yell and scream at anybody who doesn't or agree with or like everything produced by Marvel. It was their fault if they screwed up, not ours. And it was an exciting time, and nothing more exciting than when it would have the false competition between Marvel. And I remember reading in a couple of books that up until about 2000 it was fake. Like the creators from Marvel and DC were basically the same guys, just bouncing back and forth. They knew each other, and so it wasn't real. And so it was very exciting to get our books. I remember going to it. For me, it was a bookstore called Duga's Bookstore, and from there I do remember getting my very first Silver Age comic book. Man, I saw the very first appearance of Thor. I saved all my money, and after about 10 payments of 60 cents each, I went in and I bought it, and I was very happy. Now, my mom ended up paying the last payment, and that kind of angered the lady at the bookstore. You need to learn to pay for yourself, she says. But in the end, I became the proud owner of a copy. Journey into Mystery number 89. Yes, I wasn't as educated about comics as I am today. So, hey, look, it was still good stories. I had a blast with it, and it got me into buying Silver Age comics. So, you know, that was a good thing. So I figured, you know what, let's do that. And in all honesty, every so often, I would actually buy a Silver Age comic book, and I ended up with quite a collection. I would go from comic shop to comic shop, from flea market to flea market, garage sale to garage sale, picking up whatever I could, and sometimes I would come across what we consider a key issue, and books that today I wish I kind of still had in the coffers, to tell you the truth. But then something strange started happening. All of a sudden, these books started drying up. You couldn't find them, or at least what used to cost $5 now costs $15, $20, $25, $50. Wait, you mean I need almost $100 to get that book now? That's not good. See, people started realizing what they had, and you could become rich off of your comics, and we believed that as well as kids. So even when new books came around, we bought multiple copies, sometimes 5 per issue. But thankfully, there was a writer's renaissance with Dave Sims, Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, Frank Miller, John Byrne. We had some great writers paying attention to what was going on, the story content. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There was a lot of great content coming from so many publishers and so many things. It was really, really a great time to be a comic book reader. Even the independent companies, man, they started kicking all sorts of ass. I'm sorry, but I like modern day independents, but holy Toledo, did the 80s have an independent comic book boom. And both Marvel and DC knew what to do about this. They just flooded the shelves. Seriously, they put product after product. They put all sorts of gimmick covers up there. And you know what? As readers, we looked at it and said, okay, give me more. But when you're putting out so much product, the story falls wayside. And so the age of the rock star artist was born. Now, I do believe that my generation has apologized enough for Rob Liefeld. And if you feel we haven't, as a representative of my generation, I will once again apologize. Hey, look, you know what? I liked a lot of this stuff, I've got to say. I did like Spawn for a little bit, and I got to admit, the first time I read it, I liked Savage Dragon. Now, I visited it again, and I was like, oh, wow, that was not good. It really wasn't. But yeah, the story fell to the wayside. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if the story was good. What mattered was, did it look good? Man, we ate that crap up, and Marvel knew it. Marvel knew that's what we were doing. So long as the book looked good, we were willing to buy it. And man, we put our money down for some really, really bad books, because we knew these were the books that were going to make us rich. There were even these manufactured collector's items. Like, I still have my leather-bound, even with a silk bookmark, complete Frank Miller Batman, because this book was going to go up in value and make me rich. And I got to admit, that and my Marvels with the wraparound poster cover that I bought specifically from the collector's market, both look worse for wear because I've been reading them for 30 years, but I haven't seen mint conditions of these going up in value, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. We were buying anything just so long as it could make us a buck. I mean, we were big into this thing. As I, who began the 80s as a Silver Age collector, unfortunately have to admit that I became this mindless wizard zombie. And Wizard Magazine, that was the book to go to back then, because they would tell you what your comic books were worth every month. I mean, come on, Overstreet, they waited every 3 months. How do we know? We need to know right now. And those minute-long articles and the fact that they were telling us that our books were going to make us rich and put our kids through college. Not that we were putting ourselves through college with them. No, we were wasting our money on comic books. But in the end, man, because every eye was on Wizard Magazine, they could make or break a comic book company. That's why Valiant or Image, they got most of the news. And companies like, what was it, Technoverse with Neil Gaiman's Mr. Hero, which was actually a good book. They got, and Warriors of Plasm, which, okay, yeah, less mentioned about that, the better. That's a whole new thing right there. As much as you want to love comic books, we had a lot of trading card speculators come into the comic book hobby. And what did they want? They wanted trading cards. So holy crap, Marvel, DC, and all sorts of other companies gave it to them. I remember Rob Liefeld put out a card collection of characters that weren't made yet, and you could tell what it was. It was a rush to get something copyrighted. It was a rush to get something trademarked, and it was a ridiculous time. It's like all of a sudden everything but what was in the pages of the comic book seemed to be important, except for Warriors of Plasm, where the cards were the comic book. I'm sorry, we don't want to collect a comic one panel at a time, Jim Shooter. Good try on this one, though. Now we got to talk about this, because a lot of people point to the Gimmick cover as what crashed the comic book industry in the 90s. And yeah, sure, Spider-Man had holograms on it, man. Of course we're going to get it. Look, it's a hologram cover. We were magpies just flocking to the shiny new objects, man. Didn't matter what was inside. Look, it's a hologram of Spider-Man. Of course we're going to love it. That being said, when you get to the Wolverine issue number 50 with this die-cut slash through the thing, it was so hard to keep all those little jagged parts in mint condition. I hated this particular cover so much, but the one that made me realize how stupid everything was Ghost Rider number 15. I'm sorry, it's a glow-in-the-dark cover. I thought that was idiocy. Yeah, it looks cool, but think about it. You could either look at the cover where, hey, it's all shiny, but the lights are off. You can't read the book. You can't read the freaking book. So I really started taking stock in my buying habits at that time. Because they all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, what's going on here? It's like, I can't believe you guys are putting out variant covers. You're just feeding into our addiction. And when you realize that, you could stop it. Because look, you've got 4 different covers here. And then you had one that collected the 4 different covers, negating you needing to get the 4 different covers. But of course you're a collector, so guess what? You got there's 8 million of these things. If somebody is trying to sell you one of these for more than $1, you got to look at them weird. And I realize I do auctions, and maybe, okay, yeah, that's going to show up, and it'll show up for $1. It's amazing to me that people do try to sell this for more than $1. There's 8 million. Think about how few comic book readers there are right now. The variant cover is a horrible practice that still happens today. Oh my gosh, it goes on. And I got to admit, I feed into it still because I'm a cover B guy. The sad thing is all the Marvel and DC product forced some independent companies to close. There were some that stuck around. You had to order them special. And there were some that got bought out or had deep pocket backers that still managed to survive. But even though I just touched upon it, I've got to talk about Image, and I've got to talk about the quality of books. And I know everybody and their brother slammed 90s books for being bad, and so have I many, many times, because for the most part, 90s comics sucked. Not all of them, though. I actually did a couple of videos about how not all 90s comics suck. There were some really good books out there, but when you had the Image comics coming out, they were so focused on art, and these are artists, not writers, and they believed, okay, well, writing's going to be easy. Let me put this out, and it's going to be awesome. And of course, we told them, yeah, you're right, because we bought them by the droves, man. The problem with this, the biggest problem with that, is that ultimately people like myself and many, many other readers are going to start noticing how shallow all of this is. We're buying these because they're going to put us through college. Well, what if they're not going up in value like we wanted to? We're buying these because, oh, look, pretty pictures, but the pictures bring you in. The story keeps you there. After a while, if you're not telling us an interesting story, as we get older and we start realizing this, we're going to bow out. And if you look at the art, 90s art is so identifiable. More than any other job. Okay, maybe if you're looking at Golden Age, or, but it's so identifiable with the pouches, and definitely Rob Liefeld, dude. Rob Liefeld, man. As a matter of fact, when people think about 90s bad art, they think about Rob Liefeld. I'm sorry for the man, because the guy's great in his enthusiasm for comics. It's amazing. I love to talk comics with him, but he is the embodiment of bad 90s art. We do have to at least be honest enough to say that. But I think two things killed the comic book industry almost more than anything else. And yes, I know the speculation craze and everything, but dude, it was the death of Superman and a slow news day. Those two right there, because oh my lordy in heaven. If you ever thought that you had a craze around comic books, you never knew the death of Superman. Seriously. People went nuts for this. I'm talking about Joe Normal. Yeah, of course, we were going to buy it. We're the comic book readers. And at the time, John Byrne crafted a pretty darn good world for Superman. This, in my opinion, was the best era of Superman. But people were reading it, and then, of course, they didn't. They needed their gimmick, and they killed him off, and everybody came around. Now, at the time, I was running a flea market comic book shop. And I don't know if I could say that I was the most scrupulous of buyers, because I would have my family in the morning time. Every day a new comic book hit the stands, I would send my family out to all different 7-Elevens, Publixes, all sorts of stuff to get them off the newsstands. And we would buy them out. We would buy them up as much as possible, because it wasn't what we were offering, it's what people were offering us. I had people on same day and sometimes a couple of days later offering 2, 3, 4 times the value. I sold one of these trade paperbacks you could get for $5 now. I sold that for $20 because 2 people ended up having a bidding war right there. It was amazing, the craze around this, because everybody knew this was the last issue of Superman of all time. And this was the one that was not only going to put you and your kids through college, but it's going to set up everybody in the Cayman Islands. I mean, you were going to get rich off this one book. That's the one thing we all were sure of. And this, of course, didn't happen. And when it didn't happen, speculators started waking up the same way I did and stopped buying books that were supposed to make them $1 million, like Turok the Dinosaur Hunter, the next big thing from Valiant Comics, which was ordered up and out the wazoo. Didn't sell as well as they hoped. Because we're on to you, buddy. We're not going to buy 5 or 10 different covers of any one comic book, no matter how glossy it is. We're not going to buy 67 different issues of a comic book that didn't matter, like Superman 500, where he comes back. Yeah, we were expecting him to come back. It wasn't a big surprise. We know now. We know that these 90s comics aren't going to make us rich. We know that these 90s comics weren't going to put our kids through college. And if you don't have the speculators during the speculator craze, the inevitable happens. And now we're in the middle of another speculator craze. Unfortunately, this isn't driven by the next hot artist, or are they writing the story great, or people interested in finding out what happens to the character? No, it's because of who's going to be in the next movie. Oh, wait, I heard that Arm Fall Off Boy is going to be played by Nathan Fillion in the Suicide Squad. Therefore, I need to go out and get that Secret Origins book. Speculators rush out. They flip-flop the books between themselves until it becomes way, way overpriced. And by the time you get to it, it's ridiculous. Let me give you a nickel's worth of free advice. Wait until the movie comes out and it all dies down, because it's going to go away. I know, you get people on the YouTubes telling you, oh, these are going to be the books that are going to go up in value, you're going to make a lot of money, but trust me, if it's based on a movie, take your time, because the classic characters are always going to be there, and they're always going to be worth it. Hey, you remember Katana? These books were going for $300. $300, while we were all excited for the Suicide Squad movie to come out. Anybody give a crap about it anymore? Anybody looking for Katana #2 variant cup? I seen it for $25. It's not going for $300 like you would have paid when the speculators were going nutso for it. Seriously, do yourself a favor, wait it out, let the speculators do their thing, and go back to it. This is the first appearance of iZombie. Anybody care anymore? The TV show's been and gone. It's done its business and left, and now you could get this for a song. I mean, seriously, it's ridiculous the way the speculators are treating it now, because it literally has nothing to do with what's in the comic books. Occasionally we hit one, but for the most part, it's all to do with what's happening in TV, what's happening in movies, and I'm surprised people are falling for it still, because trust me, I've been through it before. It's all the same. What once was old is new again. You're falling for the same speculator BS. So anyway, that's my opinion on all of this. Like I said, this was mostly anecdotal. Let me hear what you have to say in the comments below. And don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and hit one of the videos that are popping up around you right now. And if you don't mind helping out the channel, this is the way we're trying to make a living. Go on over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi, drop $1 in the till, helps keep the lights on, helps keep making the videos for you. Like, thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching, and I'm sorry for almost killing comics.